And about to launch from Facebook.
All right. Are we up? We're right back at you with another episode of In Brotherly Love. And look, we got a great show tonight. We have some of our guests, but we have a guest who's been with us before. We brought her back. We have a guest who's been with us before. We brought her back. She was just so nice. We had to bring her back twice. And her name is Quiana McCants. Now, when she was with us before, it was Quiana, probably Canton or something other than that. It wasn't McCants, but she's McCants now. That's Mrs. McCants, Mrs. McCants. So we're glad to be back here once again. My name is J. Wendell Gordon. I'm the Warrior Lawyer. I'm a dad, HBCU grad. I'm a brother. I'm a graduate of Morgan State University, the baddest of boldest, and you know this. I'm from the DMV, you know me. And I got my brothers, these two kings that I always have with me. They make up the trifecta of Black intelligentsia, as some of us may try to call us. Other than that, we're just some common people sprinkled with stardust. That's all we are. Made of common clay, that is, and we're sprinkled with stardust. So we're here again. So boom, what's up? Who's got next?
I got next. This is Jeff Gordon coming at you once again. Yes, we are right back at you. Got an exciting show. We got, I got to get it right. We got Mrs. Quiana McCants here. And then later on in the evening, we got them for you, ladies and gentlemen. We got the gubernatorial candidate, Wes Moore, coming in to talk to us. And we're going to have a real good time. So y'all better tune in, get your popcorn, get your drinks. Come on, sit down and get ready. My name is Jeff Gordon. I'm a father. I'm a son. I'm an HBCU grad from the Hampton University, the standard of excellence. So yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on down. And these two kings right here, these are my brothers.
Jason, I thought he was going to say Hampton, Ukraine University.
Yeah, Ukraine. Hey, what's going on out there, folks? It's the baby of the bunch. None other than me, Jason S. The Voice Gordon. I am an HBCU grad of one of the top two HBCUs known in the land, and we ain't number two. The home of your MVP, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, none other than the Mecca, Howard University. Again, HBCU grad, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I am an uncle, I am a son, and I'm a brother to these two gentlemen. And we've got Mrs. Quiana McCants on with us one more again. Go on ahead and tell them who you are.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Black economics tonight. Quiana, it's on you. What you going to do?
All right. Well, thank you. I'm always excited to come hang out with y'all. Y'all truly the best. But I have to say that I'm probably from the best HBCU, which is Clark Atlanta University. I said what I said. Jeff. Clark Atlanta. Clark, hey, all y'all represent, I got to represent too. Clark Atlanta University down in the AUC. Here I am, loving to be here tonight with you guys about Black economics. And yes, since the last time I was on, I did get married. So I am Mrs. McCants now, no longer Miss Jackson. So here I am. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Sorry, Miss Jackson. She is married. She is Miss McCants tonight. You know, she is Miss McCants, Mrs. McCants. We want to talk about Black economics because all that's going on, we talk about all these other things, including love and hip hop and everything like that, Wild Will, Smack Chris and all that, but we haven't talked much about Black economics. So we brought you in here. You wrote the book on Black economics, so brought you in here to kind of educate us on what we need to know in order to prosper in these very trying times when gas prices are high, food prices are high, and our people are getting high off that marijuana and everything else that's out here. We want to figure out how to redirect those energies and make some money, or at least raise some money. What do we have to do to succeed in today's climate?
Well, it's interesting because I've been in finance for a long time. I think since I've known you over a decade, and I just put this book out last year. And what motivated me to put out Black economics is because I've been in finance for a long time, teaching financial literacy. There's a ton of financial resources out there, but I couldn't find one that was for us. or that took our history into consideration. And every time I presented something and said, hey, we need to go this way, we need to hit this market. Nah, it's not time to do it. Or we don't really like that initiative. I kept getting those answers. And as I kept hitting the streets and in the community, my classes sounded different, right? And the people who would come up to me after, they would say, Quiana, I've been to 1 million financial classes. I'm taking notes every time. And for the first time after coming to your class, I feel like I can do something different in my life. And it kept hitting me and it kept hitting me. And I always felt after teaching the class, I felt good, but I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And a lot of times I was in a position to where I was the only person who looked like me in the room.
What you mean?
So,
they had curly hairs and they were light skin?
You know, all of that plus.
Black people. Black is not a dirty word. Black people.
Yeah, I was the only one.
There no black people in the room with you.
You're the only one with melanin in your DNA.
Correct. And that has different challenges because Black history is such a heavy part of Black finance that we don't always take into consideration. And when you have non-Black people or non-diverse rooms, they're not going to take it into consideration either, right? You have mass market initiatives. And what we have to realize, there's a lot of stereotypes associated with our community when it comes to money, that we have poor spending habits, that we have bad credit, that we all these different things going on, but nobody's talking about that our community is actually really thriving, well ahead of what we should be doing, considering that there were all these laws put in place to make sure we didn't have none of this. Okay, so when I put Black economics together, it's not just a finance book, it's a one of a kind. So each category, we go through the history of credit. We talk about that credit cards, you know, came onto the scene in 1946, but guess who couldn't have any? We couldn't have any.
And guess what? Credit card?
Credit cards, right? 1946 is when it hit the scene. And, you know, the civil rights movement haven't happened yet at that time.
Nope, not till 64.
So we didn't have credit cards. We weren't included in that. And a heavy part of your credit score is your credit history. Okay. So if you don't have that history, that was already a hindrance as is. So people say, well, why'd you put Black history? You know, why not just talk about finance as a whole? Because nobody's adding context to our story, right? They're creating this story for us about where we're at. And we need to be proud of the movement that we're making, considering that every time we turn around, somebody's throwing a law in place, somebody's throwing an obstacle in place, but we still climbing over it. So somebody needs to take that context into history. And for our community, we need to be proud of where we're at, which is technically just now really getting started. And look at us, Black businesses, we're coming up with the first Black everything in society. And that hasn't happened before. So I want people to read the book, especially Black people, and say, okay, I'm not behind. I'm not embarrassed to talk about maybe not having excellent credit or this long credit history because I didn't have the exposure. But now that I know that this stuff happened, I also have an activity right in front of me of how to navigate through these things. So the unique thing about Black economics, it combines the history, but then it doesn't stop there. It's not just designed to motivate you, right? Motivation sells. Motivation moves you. That's why people buy these other finance books, these mass market finance books. But Black economics teaches you how to move, right? Teaches you how to dance with some rhythm so your finances look good and feel good while you're navigating through them. So each chapter has an activity associated with the credit topic: credit, savings, life insurance, health insurance. Even if you got an old relationship that didn't work out and now y'all co-parenting, there's some financial tips on how to do that well without acting crazy.
I don't think that's gonna work. I just don't think so.
It's in there.
It can work. It can work. It can work.
That's a lot.
It can work. It can work.
But check this out. Look, I always called you my civil rights man. And the reason why is because you always considered the culture and couple that with our finances to make sure that those of us who do have the melanin in our skin and those of us who are Black, make sure that we know that there's a lane that it may not be carved out right now, but you're definitely blazing a trail to make this lane. And then, you know, it's up to us to come behind you and pave it. So I really appreciate what you're doing with the book, Black Economics, but what are some of the basic tips that we need to know? Now, I know we're gonna go out here and buy this book, so I'm not gonna have you give away all your, but what is it that we need to know basically as Black people who are interested in finances and our economic wealth?
Absolutely. So the first thing I always tell people, no matter what you're trying to plan, analyze where you are at. And it's easier said than done. Everybody doesn't know how to do that. You hear all these, what I call mass market tips, meaning like write down, make a budget, look and follow your budget. That's easier said than done. If no matter how much you budget, it's still not enough, right?
Yeah.
To get you to the next phase. You can budget down to the penny and still be short $20 at the end of the month, whether it's groceries or, like you said, an increase in gas prices, or if the kids want to do some extracurricular activities and they send you the bill for that. So understanding where you're at and not being afraid to speak about it. And here's what I mean, right? I grew up in a time and in a household where the saying was, keep your business out the street.
Right.
Don't put it out there. And that meant finance, that meant sex, and that meant religion. Don't talk about none of that. And don't embarrass us on any of those topics either when you're out there in public, right?
Why did we talk about finance though? What was that about?
Money. Don't let people know how much
Oh
money.
yeah, that's right.
Right?
That's
Don't
right.
let them know what
Even
you're
to
Let
the
them
day,
know what's in your
We
pocket.
still do that. We still
don't
do
need
that.
to know
Right.
what's in your pocket. But that ideology was derived from wanting to be a survivor. Okay. So when my parents and my grandparents were navigating in their 40s and their early 50s, it was still survival. And it's still technically survival now. So to keep everything to yourself, to me, was a thought process of don't show any weakness, because everybody in society is coming for you. So if you put this stuff out in the street, either people are going to take advantage of you or they're going to think less of you. So it's not safe to talk about these things. But for where we're at right now, that ideology will hurt us going forward, because we're not in the full survival stage anymore. We are transitioning from surviving to being able to live for the first time in our community as a generation. When you think about, like, my mom, when she was born, there was no voting rights still for Black people. Now, granted, by the time she turned 18, there were, but we're the first generation born into full rights.
Yeah.
Right? So we have a different responsibility and our behaviors need to look different. So when it comes to analyzing where you're at, and if that's challenging for you to do, talk about it. Now, don't put it on Facebook, right? Or TikTok or whatever and say, look, y'all, I'm a little broke. What should I do? Don't do that. But get an expert involved, right? Go to your local financial institution, tell them you need support in budgeting. They can't kick you out for that. They're supposed to help you with that process, because they have a community responsibility to that, to financial health. And a lot of them don't advertise that, right? You'll see the money that they're giving away, all those different things, but they have a financial responsibility to support you in your journey to be healthy.
Now, you know what I found? I found that, our generation has really squandered a lot. And I'm talking about, what are we, Generation Xers and the 50-year-olds, whoever we are. We've squandered a lot because our grandparents left things to their children and their parents left things to them. We've had the houses in DC, we've had the farms, but because we couldn't get along, maybe because we were so free, we were free to decide that we weren't going to move as a unit, but to move individually. And I think people began to be more interested in themselves, because I can still see some of these houses selling in DC for $300,000 or $400,000, and now they're worth millions today, or $250,000, they're worth millions today. I still hear about farms in Virginia, North Carolina, acres and acres. I'm talking about hundreds of acres of property that's been sold for like pennies on the dollar, and now they got Walmart sitting on them. You know what I mean? And these farms, or this land belonged to Black families, but when our parents died, it seemed like they were the linchpin to keeping the family together. And once they transitioned, the family fell apart, and they started fighting each other over pennies. And we do that a lot. I see it a lot in the legal profession. I see it in my own family, and not my nuclear family, but I see it in my relatives. how, it's not much there, but they're fighting tooth and nail over pennies that's not even gonna make a real difference in their life. Because give them a little relief for about 1 month to 6 months, but it's not life changing. And so
I think Jay Wendell, what you're saying is actually it's a key point because as even though I'm younger and there's that gap between us, what I have noticed is that as we've matriculated through and we become educated, we become extremely self-centered as a community. And like you said, we've become more so containers, and it's a phrase that I use a lot that we need to be more conduits than containers. Blessings need to flow through us as opposed to just flowing to us, because a container can only hold but so much, and then it begins to spill. And and what we've done is we've gotten to a place to where we hoard now, and we don't look to support one another. Whereas going through the civil rights movement, everybody was moving together in lockstep to make sure that we all thrive. Now we're moving in a way that we individually only thrive. So what are some things, Quiana, that we could do? I know like you getting your information out there would kind of help with that, but what are some things that we should be doing as a community to move us from a survival mindset to a thriving mindset?
Well, one of the first things I'll say around that topic is that we're not the only ones that fight when somebody passes away. The difference is we don't have the paperwork to go with the fight, right? So our fight looks a little different and less structured. And when other communities are fighting, they're getting their lawyers to review the estate plan and all the things and trying to find the loopholes of where they can fit in. And we're missing that step. But something else from a psychology standpoint, when you think of where our generation is and where that civil rights movement was, right, where they were locked arms, they were all struggling together. They were all under attack together. That's not the case. A lot of us doing very well for ourselves. So that's not the case. We're not all in the same struggle. We're not on public assistance as a whole. We're not all entry level. Some of us sitting in the executive room, a lot of us have our own businesses. A lot of us are doing well. So there's not unity right there, right? There's not that combined struggle where I'm good, right? You may not be good, but I don't want to lose me being good to help you maybe get to being good. So we have what I call celebration of survivorship. And what that means is that I'm still celebrating that I don't have to, think about being hungry like I did when I was a kid anymore. And I'm holding on so tight to that feeling that I'm celebrating by myself. And I will do everything in my power to hold on to it. And that's really where you get some of these derogatory terms, right? About Black people that may have made it. And maybe they're sellouts now or what that looks like. But it's this celebration survivorship to say, I can't care about what someone else has going on because I'm good right now. And my kids are good and my kids are in private school, or this is, my house looks nice and I can't give that up. So I can't fight for you, because if I fight for you, the people who gave me the opportunity may take it away from me. Right. And then I don't got nothing either. And you're not in a position to help me. So now we both stuck.
We see that all the time.
Especially
those of us who make our living in the public service sector, those who work for the government. You won't see them, do much to make conditions better. If they can do it within their job sphere, then that's good. But in the community, you don't see a whole lot of that. So I feel you.
But then you got a whole mindset that's getting ready to make things a lot worse, because as time goes on, we start to get more stuff and we start to do more things. So now that risk or that concern of losing it becomes even greater. And now we start to hoard, and we want to make sure that we have it for our family and our kids and everybody else. And we look less and less behind to see who we can pull up. Mm-hmm. That's going to be, how do we overcome that kind of mindset? Because that's going to be that's a psychology of a whole group of people.
It's deep, and it's not, I don't think it's something to overcome. What I think from my thought process is you got to find like-minded people. because it's scary being on the battlefield when you're the only Black person, because you know how quick somebody can X you out if you're causing good trouble, right? We know it's good trouble, but it's still trouble nonetheless.
Yeah.
So find like-minded people, and we have to create those security blankets around each other that it says, if you go down with the fight, you're not going all the way down, because my business can pick you up if you lose your job for fighting for pay equity or for, you know, for doing whatever you're doing. And it's hard sometimes because as a whole, we're not in that position, right? The decision maker position, like some of the other cultures, to say, I can bring in my son, right? Nepotism and all those things, that no matter what they did, something crazy, they still got a job at the end of the day. That's what we need to start creating. And it comes with like-minded people. It doesn't mean overthrow any governments or overthrow, you know, any large corporations. It means find a group. And there are civic organizations out there, right, across the country, but we have youth programs, right? Youth mentoring programs. When our adults need the connectivity too, it's not just about teaching the next generation, it's allowing us to be in a position not to go backwards so that we can continue to support the future generations. And it may mean that we got to pick each other up sometimes, which we don't want to do because that takes out of my pocket. But if I got to put you on the payroll at my business, and not just let you sit there, right? I know you add value. Instead of saying things like, man, you know what, I'm gonna pray for you that gets better. No, I got opportunity for you.
But so,
That's right.
Mrs. McCants, but what have you seen out here? So small businesses out here, they're just getting started, or they're still kind of small. So carrying somebody on payroll in an overhead position, or carrying someone on payroll for a while until they get on their feet, what is the real reality of that? Especially with the, you know, everybody's pushing to create these LLCs, and, you know, they don't even, you know, it's for versus creating a C Corp, you know, what's the difference, and understanding all of that. So what are we going to do with that? Because
I'm not talking about your small business owner because they can't afford it. I'm talking about the people who are actually in positions, and we have Black executives, senior executives all across this company that have a lot of leverage, right? And even in the recruiting aspect, they make pull. You have like equal opportunity employers, right? You apply, you do this and all that stuff. But once you get to a certain level, you can appoint positions if it's within your guidelines.
We just ain't doing enough, man. We're just not doing enough with the opportunities and resources that we have. That's why I like Morgan State University better than those schools that these guys went to. Because Morgan State University, they indoctrinated us with the fact that it's not good enough just to be able to be a success on your own, have your house, white picket fence. If you're not helping somebody else, then you may be a success unto your family, but you are not what you are meant to be. And quite frankly, we don't really see that as the ultimate or the penultimate success. Success comes when you can help somebody else help themselves to reach certain plateaus. Nobody wants to be at the top alone. The only place until you become a target. But if you bring some people up with you, then you're less likely to become a target. And that's why I truly believe, my brother tell you, even if you don't want to, I truly believe in giving back, because if you give back, people don't become jealous of the success. They help you succeed because they see themselves as a beneficiary of your success. Sometimes it's just in knowing you, they feel like a beneficiary, but you get less hateration when they know you're out in the community. And people will defend you in arguments and fights that you never knew existed.
Right.
Because of what you contribute to your community. Somebody says a bad word about you in a particular somebody's presence, they will be ready to fight. They say, man, I had to fight. I said, you don't have to fight for me, I'm all right. Yeah. Like, man, I just ain't like what they said, you know, and that's what we learned from Morgan State University. Now, Howard, they're going up there to become vice president and can't even get the police reform bill passed, you know what I mean? And invite 100,000 Ukrainians into the United States with this racist attitude that they bring over here from the Ukraine. So that's what Howard University did.
That honestly, you know what? No.
Educate all the Ukrainians who knocked out and killed, knocked out and just bludgeoned several Africans so they can come over here to the United States and get a stipend from the government to make themselves. And we're fighting for reparations. Can you believe that? But we got a vice president who graduated from Howard, and you know, that's the plight of the African American in this country.
That's not fair.
No, see,
And then
that's
I go to Howard. That's not fair.
So
because
what I
she's standing up there by herself a lot of times with every angle coming at her because she's from Howard.
I'm tired.
She doing
How
all
many excuses
so
can
don't put the weight. Don't put the weight of the world on her shoulders because it's too
She's vice president.
It's too
so here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say that HBCUs as a whole, even though we throw shots, because we always talk about the 13th grade or Morgan State High School
or Morgan Middle School.
But we talk about each other, but don't let nobody else talk about us now. Now we can talk about each other, but you can't talk about us. So like if you look at the difference in an HBCU made graduate and I'm gonna go there, a predominantly white institution graduate, we fight more in the trenches than anybody else. Because before she became vice president, she was putting bills along that help with HBCU funding. Like we do things that help each other out. And you're right, Jay Wendell, because of the fact that we do give back to the community, because of the fact that HBCU graduates are conditioned to look out for the fellow man, because we're not stepping over each other to graduate, we're moving along with each other to graduate. It's instilled in you to reach back and help out your fellow brother, your fellow sister. But you got a chance to shine on that one. I'm gonna give you're a wordsmith, so you get your words in.
I ain't trying,
No. You know what I'm saying? You get your words in.
It was more like a filibuster, man. He wouldn't let nobody jump in. It was like a filibuster going on right there.
All of that's easier said than done. You got to look at the psychology associated with it too, because while the other cultures have stereotypes about us, we can't say that those stereotypes didn't impact our thought process. And even when you get to that top executive room, right, you probably do want to bring some other people, but that stereotype of one of us reflects all of us, that's in the back of our mind. So when you referring somebody, it's like, man, if they mess up and they look like me, that may be the last shot. So we're more timid in that approach too, which has to be addressed. We got a lot of psychological pain that we're trying to work through and survive and live at the same time. And it's not a game of checkers. It's not even a game of chess, right? You put 3 chessboards on top of each other and play them all at the same time, blindfolded, then we might be talking. We might be talking at the same time, but it's different. It's different.
Because I mean, we can even use our dad. Like our dad made it up to the highest level in his agency. And one of the reasons why dad waited so long to retire was because number one, he was the only black face in the room. He was the only black face. Actually, because I started at the entry level there, dad was literally the only black face on the 4th floor. The only one up there. And the reason why he held out so long was because of the fact that he wanted to ensure that as the agency moved forward, that he wasn't the only black face up there. So, dad would train people and so forth and so on. And that's just the nature of, like we said, HBCU thinking, because my HBCU thinking is what drives me to do what I do. It's what drives my passion to see, young black kids, boys and girls, to utilize their athletic talents to parlay that into an education. And even in parlay that into an education, I tell them that if you've got a choice between an HBCU and a mid-major PWI, go to the HBCU. Just because of the type of training, HBCUs are going to love you through. And you're going to learn how to carry somebody along with you. You're going to learn how to work with the community to get the common goals achieved.
Well said. That boy good.
Yeah, good.
How we going to get the common goals achieved economically? How are we going to shed this mindset that economic success is reserved for only a chosen few?
Okay, well, first thing we got to do is get the book out there. The activities are in there. I need every civic organization, I need every HBU to pay attention and pick this up, because if we are not distributing the information, nobody's passing it out for us, right? I need the Black churches to pick this book up, right? They want people to be able to afford the 10%. Then let's teach them how to restructure the budget and the funds to be able to do that and not have to choose between tithing and the groceries. Okay.
You got something. That's a great idea.
We need to
that preaches right there. That preaches.
And when you think about we still talk about these mass market finance books, and I'm not going to say the names, right? Because we already know, we could probably name 2 or 3 of them off the top of our head. We need to exchange that for Black economics and say, have you heard about this one though? And our decision makers who are filling the bookstores, filling the audiences, they need to pick it up. That's the start. This is the only thing out there that is designed for our economic health, with us in mind, by us as well. So that's step one. We got to get the word out. I can't do it by myself. If I could choose, I would just stay in a corner and just help people blindly. But I realize that as I go on this journey, they're going to have to see my face, right? They're going to have to know who created it. They're going to have to understand the intent. They're going to have to be walked through. But journeys and mass change don't happen with one person walking down the street. Right.
Yeah.
We have to lock arms too. And I'm looking for that support right now.
So we've got to get your book in all HBCUs then.
Is there a link to
the Black church,
we gotta
they want
be
some of
there.
that tie money. I'm sure she got a carve out for black ties.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm sure it's something that you can make that leap to black ties. But you know, we really need to focus on our economics and the legacy that we want to leave behind for our heirs, because it's just that important. And look, as Quiana said, we're the first free generation. The Civil Rights Act passed in '64, giving equal rights to African Americans just as any other citizen. That's barely 60 years ago, if it's that long ago. So we have only been freed for the last 60 years. And I think we've done remarkably well. We've had a black president, black female vice president, had about 3 Supreme Court justices. I mean, we get it in. And we started from a 400-year deficit, 400-year deficit. So we got black gubernatorial candidates coming through, some black governor, Douglas Wilder's, Paul Patrick's. Look, there's nothing that we can't do. We are undefeated, but we have to continue to press forward and make new landmarks. And so that's what we find extremely important. So Quiana, Black economics, we are into it. We are here for it. We will buy that book. I will buy that book on behalf of all of my brothers. It looks like it's a $20 book.
$17.99 on Amazon.
We good. We got it.
We're gonna get your book, and we need to get you up here in Maryland so you can distribute some of this information and make us financially sound in not only our decisions, but also in our investments and preserving the legacy of our families. So Quiana, I thank you so much for being here. And I'm gonna let you say the last word. We know we got to get your book, but what else we got to say?
I just appreciate the opportunity. And at the end of the day, the stereotypes don't define us. They are designed to keep us from knowing how powerful that we are. So when you hear it, keep it moving and keep going on your path, because we are trailblazing together quicker than anybody thought we could. And it's a scary thing to see, but enjoyable for us. So thank you very much for having me. I definitely look forward to connecting with y'all in the future. And I will be in Maryland, the DMV area, the last week of June. So we got to plan something.
All right, well, we'll be looking for you. You need to have a book signing up here some kind of way.
Yeah, we going, you got to pull up. You got to pull up.
Yeah, I'm ready. So I know y'all got another guest in the room. I already see him. Thank you for your time tonight. You guys have been amazing as always. And then we will connect again.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You can stick around. You don't have to leave us if you want to.
Oh, well then, you know what? Let me put myself on mute because I'm interested.
Yeah, pull up.
I was gonna say, because I loved your interview.
Maryland, because what Maryland affects this whole country and even the world. You know, we got one of the best states in the nation. It's got its flaws, but we're here to make it better. You know, Maryland may be a little sick in certain areas, but we're gonna nurse her back to health. Because once she gets right, she's gonna be all the way right. And the beginning of Maryland getting right is putting the right people in place.
The right people.
And so we're so privileged and honored to have gubernatorial candidate Wes Moore to join us in our speaker series entitled Black Men Run Statewide. So here we have Wes Moore, who's running statewide, and there was some others, Tim Adams we had, and Anthony Brown we had on here. So look, We just completed the trifecta with Westmore. Westmore, how's it going, man?
Man, I am doing great. I'm so grateful for y'all. I'm so thankful to be on here with you. And I got to tell you, Miss McCants, you are preaching knowledge on here. This has been a joy. This has been a joy being on here with you and listening. So, but to all y'all, this is I'm honored to be here. And our warrior lawyer, good to see you, good brother.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
indeed.
glad to see you, Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir. How you doing? How you doing, sir?
Hey,
I'm seeing the Gordons in front of me. This is just pure what I have on my screen right now.
There you go.
Glad to have you on. Glad to have you on. Glad to have you on.
So Wes, we're looking forward to seeing you this Sunday. Westmore is having a fundraiser at Jeff's house. Okay.
Yes.
Don't come over here. You're going to Jeff's house. Out of droves. We want to see 1,000 people at Jeff's house. We want to see 1,000
pack
people.
the house.
I only got food for
Hey,
500.
look, all you have to do is
for
contribute $500. We're going to see 1,000 people contribute
Hold on, wait
$100.
a second.
Come to Jeff's house, and we're gonna shake it down. We're gonna have a party on
Hey,
behalf of Westmore.
did you hear what Jeff said? Jeff said he only has room for 500 people in the town.
I said food.
You know what I'm saying? Quiana, I think this goes into black economics too, doesn't it?
It does. I think that's a lot of space to work with.
You know, he's got a lot of space up in there, and that's why his house is chosen.
Only to be eclipsed by the warrior lawyer. So you ain't
True.
to the city.
Oh
Wes,
boy.
you've been traveling across this state.
Yeah.
From Wacomico County to Garrett County. If not yet, you will get there because there are boats in every corner of the state. And as you know, it's a beautiful state. We have everything from the ocean to the mountains. The only thing we don't have in Maryland is a desert. But we got everything else. And we have people from all backgrounds, from all cultures, nationalities, and all of us are interested in one thing. How can we get Maryland on the right path? How can we make Maryland be representative of its citizens? And how can we pick the right leader for our state to succeed in doing all of those things? And we wanted to talk to you about your platform here today. And basically just let you have the floor. And then we want to talk about the elephant that we want to talk about it because our audience wants to know about it. But I want to start with your platform.
Yeah.
And
Well,
tell
you
them
know
why you're the
what?
best
And I got to tell you, I mean, when we talk about that we don't have a desert, actually we do. We have food deserts. We have health deserts. We have educational deserts. We have deserts all throughout the state of Maryland. And where you just have a situation where opportunity does not grow equally here in the state of Maryland. And that's a big reason why I am running, where none of us should be okay with the idea that we can have literally some of the best technology companies in the world here in the state of Maryland. Maryland is on pace to be the capital of quantum. Right? We have cyber tech.
Hold up.
You got to explain that. Yeah, what is that?
I mean, we're literally talking about, think about it, right? You have the Applied Physics Lab here in the state of Maryland, a place that is literally talking about space and how we actually coming up with mathematical equations that the human brain cannot even process, right? You have CDC, you have NIH, you have all these assets right here in the state of Maryland. Yet at the same time, we have children who do not have access to Wi-Fi, right? Explain to me how that one works. Explain to me how we can have some of the best medical institutions in the world. People literally fly from around the globe to come get treated in the state of Maryland. And we have people who live down the street from those institutions who cannot get basic care. Right. And so the reason when I think about what it is that we are trying to get done, and that's why, honestly, I got to tell you, I love being on here with Quiana, because so much of what we're talking about, this is about how are we going to create pathways for work, wages, and wealth for every family. Work, wages, and wealth. And when I think about the three things that we have got to do as a state over the next decade, there's three things that our state has got to get done. And it's our responsibility to make it happen. We've got to make our state both more competitive and also more equitable at the same time. And that's not a binary conversation. In order to be more competitive, we must be more equitable. In order for equity to be much more competitive, we have got to address and we've got to close the racial wealth gap. I mean, Citi indicates that over the past 2 decades, the racial wealth gap inside of this country has cost this country $16 trillion in economic activity and GDP. So it's not like the racial wealth gap is hurting one group. It's hurting the entire country. It's hurting our GDP. And then we've got to address the issue of climate. We've got to address the fact that the state of Maryland, it's cost the state of Maryland over $10 billion over the past decade for the fact that we do not have resilient infrastructure. The fact that and also it's not being equally distributed. When you're looking at our communities, you know, that you're looking at the impact of climate is having a disproportionate impact on communities of color, on urban communities, when you're looking at everything from extreme heat to the fact that we're having 100-year weather episodes every 5 years now. And so this becomes an important moment for us to be able to take a real leadership role, for the state of Maryland to understand the power of our balance sheet, to be able to change destinies. And so that's why I decided to get in this race.
So for individuals who are finding it hard to, you know, put food on their table, educate their children post-pandemic, how do you get them interested in climate? And why is that? You know, I heard you say why you feel it's important, but how do you make that resonate with those individuals who trying to make that BGE bill? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I think we have to remind people that, you know, when people say, well, you know, climate doesn't impact me, or what happens in the Bay doesn't impact me, or what happens in the harbor, it's like, you know, because I don't go in the water. We're not just talking about people who go in the water, right? We're talking about it's one of the main economic engines that the state of Maryland has. We're talking about some of our largest economic entities. We're talking about some of the largest job producers that we have here in the state of Maryland. And we're also talking about the fact that when you're looking at extreme heat episodes, for example, then you look at the city of Baltimore, that has a very real impact on all of our lives, because for students and children in Baltimore City has doubled the asthma rates of the entire state. That is an environmental catastrophe. That's environmental injustice, the fact that our children are suffering from asthma at twice the rate of the rest of the state. The fact that we have to close schools because of extreme heat, because we don't have air conditioning inside of our buildings. When you're having more extreme heat episodes, particularly within urban areas, that's something where if we don't have resilient infrastructure to be able to deal with that, whether you say I don't get on the water or I don't live near the Chesapeake Bay, this is directly impacting your life. And so everything from environmental injustice, economic injustice, transportation injustice, all of these things do revolve around our ability to take climate seriously, to be able to take the environment seriously, and to be able to make sure that we are going to invest in things like rising seawalls to address sea levels, having greater tree canopy to address extreme heat, being able to address things like asthma, and also take a look at other environmental injustice issues, like, for example, the propensity to have lead paint and lead piping inside of our water fountains. You know, we've known that lead is a neurotoxin in this country for over a decade. We've just been incredibly class and color coded in the way that we've dealt with it. And so these are all things that the state has a unique role, both to your point, Jay, both to educate people as to why it's important, and then also make sure we're making investments to be able to do it.
Do you see that climate is going to be a big issue for voters in the urban areas? So I see gun violence the same way you're talking about climate.
Yep.
Gun violence is taking out our children, our young
That's
people,
right.
especially in Baltimore City, especially in Prince George's County and some of the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
What is the plan to address gun violence? And it can't be just lock everybody up and throw away the key, but it's like, what is the plan that we have in place to address some of those issues? Because those issues are more a stat in terms of our families per se than climate.
Yeah. Well, and I got to tell you, and that's not just for Baltimore. I'm hearing that all across the state, where people are talking about the issue of violence, the issue of gun violence, and we've had an ability to be able to deal with certain things. And I can tell, I applaud, for example, the Maryland legislature for what they did around ghost guns. for the fact that we had these ghost guns that are around that cannot be traced, cannot be detected, but were continuing to find themselves in our communities, right? And the legislature actually took leadership on it in a way that, frankly, the current governor didn't even pass the bill. He allowed it to go in because he didn't want to sign it, because of the message it was sending to the rest of the country. But the other thing is there are a lot of things that we have to do to be able to address the issue of violence within our society that the state can actually take a unique leadership role on that we're not doing right now. On the very practical things, we have to address the fact that 1/3 of all people who are in violation, who are committing violent crimes, are in some way, shape, or form are in violation of parole and probation, right? So i.e. we know who the individuals are. Parole and probation, there is no mayor that controls parole and probation. There's no city council person. That's the governor.
Right.
DPP is a state function. And right now it is understaffed, it is undermanned, and it's underinvested in, right? And so if you want to address the issue of parole and probation violations, that can only come from the governor. Right now, we know there are certain programs that are working as violence interruption programs inside our communities, right? Safe Streets, We Are Us, Cure, programs that are doing a great job of being able to serve as violence interruption, because so much of the violence that we also see in our society, it's retaliatory, right? It's you get me, now I'm coming after 3 of your people, right? And these groups, because as I always say, the people who are closest to the challenge are the ones closest to the solutions. They're just hardly ever at the table. Some of the main underwriters for those programs could be the state. And do you know who was not invested in those programs? The state. So we need to make sure that we actually have a chief executive who, whenever he says the words Baltimore, it's not with disdain. It's not talking about Baltimore like it's not part of the state of Maryland. And
it is nice to have a candidate who appreciates and chooses Baltimore.
Exactly. And
that's very important, because we know that when you become governor, you will not speak upon Baltimore with this disdain, but you will romanticize the beauty and graciousness and everything else good about Baltimore. Amen. I think Jason had a question for you.
So looking into our chat, it's a little activity going on now that you're on, Wes. They starting to boogie a little bit. From Monica Jackson, she first says, "Thank you for supporting Maryland's blueprint for the future. You mentioned about college tuition on your website. Can you elaborate a bit on your plan regarding college tuition?"
Absolutely. And first, who's that question from? Sorry,
Monica Jackson.
Monica, God bless you and thank you. And I tell you, one of the best days for the campaign for me was when our campaign received the endorsement of the teachers, which is a big deal for us. I mean, 76,000 strong. And by the way, got 85% vote on first ballot for the teachers, received their endorsement. So that was so incredibly humbling. And yes, I'm a loud and proud proponent for the blueprint. I was proud to work on it as it was being developed. I was proud to testify on behalf of it when it was in front of the Maryland General Assembly. And unfortunately, while I was proud, I unfortunately had to go and then try to whip votes when the governor decided that he didn't want to sign it. And so I am very clear that in our administration, I will fully fund it, but then together we are going to fully implement it. And this is not just about, how we're thinking about K-12. It is also about how are we thinking about higher education. And that means higher education for a full frame. It means higher education when we talk about how we're going to make record investments in apprenticeships and trade programs. Because if a student wants to go on to a 4-year school, that's fantastic. But if they want to go on to become an iron worker or work on HVAC, or if they want to be a carpenter.
I might not say HVAC is very expensive, so I know they make a good living.
Let me tell you something. And I was talking with boilermakers, with boilers. If my heat goes out, right, there's no app I can push for that, right? Right. You can't outsource that. You need someone who knows what they're doing.
Right.
And so we have to create pathways. I'm proud of the fact that I'm the only candidate in this race who has an associate's degree. And people laugh and they're like, you were the first Black Rhodes Scholar in the history of Johns Hopkins University, and the ring that you wear is from your junior college. And that's true, because it's my foundation. And we want to make sure that every student has a chance to find their own path, find their own foundation. And so that does and is also going to include, how are we talking about affordability for higher education? How are we talking about things like debt relief that we have for students? And also, one of the plans that I have in place, and you'll see on the site that I'm very excited about, is we are going to have a service year option for every single high school graduate. Every high school graduate will have a chance to have a paid year of service to the state of Maryland, and they can choose. It can be in the environment and working on things like
paid year of service?
100% paid year of service. And so let me walk you through this.
So that's like some Marion Barry stuff. That's
that's
like the summer youth programs.
Hey,
That's
man,
right.
that's starting to
That's
sound
right.
a little gangster right here, boy.
That's exactly right.
Growing up in the DMV, when Marion Barry had his summer youth program, when you couldn't get a job, he sent you to school. And in fact, I went to school under his program. I think I learned either calculus or trigonometry, one of those hard math classes that I really didn't do well in my school with. I went to summer school with Marion Barry's program and got paid for it. Look, my brother has a small business. He has an IT firm. And I know he's concerned about how small businesses will be treated in the state of Maryland, and how can we make sure that small businesses get paid, especially Black businesses who work under these larger businesses and find many challenges just trying to get the money that they earn from these.
That's right. And I tell you, honestly, he should be concerned. Because the way it is done right now, it is not fair, nor there is no parity in the way that we're looking at this. And when people say, it's tough to build a small business in the state of Maryland, my answer is, I know. I had to build one. And it is crazy when you think about how difficult we make it for our small business, and particularly for our MBEs and our WBEs. And think about what we have right now with the state of Maryland, right? Where we have procurement policies and they call them procurement goals of 29% procurement goals. Here's the problem. If we've never hit them, since it's been 29%, we've never hit it. And so I don't even call it a procurement goal. If you have a goal that you have no intention of hitting, it's not a goal. We have procurement suggestions in the state of Maryland because we don't enforce them. We don't back them up. We don't create mechanisms for there to be real pathways. And so if you look at where we are right now as the state of Maryland, we have 29% procurement suggestions in the state of Maryland, right? Last year, the state of Maryland did 14. 14.
Well, how are we going to change it, Wes?
Here's how we're going to change it.
Or how can
we're going to make sure we're going to make sure we're getting rid of just the waiver giveaways that we have, because when you're putting together our RFPs, you're putting together proposals, as long as you make a good faith effort to be able to have participation, that's enough, and you can get enough to grant a waiver. Those days are done. When we are having state dollars, taxpayer dollars, by the way, which are paying for this work, there needs to make sure that there's real measures of accountability and enforcement when it comes to making sure that you can actually hit those goals and make sure you can strive above them. We're also going to make sure that we're creating better pipelines and mechanisms. We have to invest. We have 4 of the top HBCUs in America right here in the state of Maryland. And if you just want to go just outside of our border, go ahead and throw on Howard, right? We have.
You don't have to throw us in there. We already there, baby.
Hey, look, Wes is everywhere. You can throw in Howard if you want to. We'll throw them under the bus where they belong.
That's right. But we actually have to invest in ways that we want our businesses, in particular our MBEs and our WBEs, to be able to benefit and prosper. We've got so much great technology. We have to do, and when we're talking about climate, for example, right? Things like battery storage, things like the electrification of the grid. When I say that every single state vehicle in the state of Maryland, by the end of my second term, will be an electric vehicle, we have to make sure we're actually putting together proper investments and utilizing our HBCUs and our MBEs to be able to fulfill those promises and fulfill those requirements. And so you can move a goal, whatever you want to move the goal to. If you don't have a pathway to be able to achieve it and have real enforcement in place, that's where we're going to actually fix this problem.
Hey, seniors.
Hold up.
We got to move fast.
Look, and I got one more too. There were some long questions in the jump, but seniors, go ahead.
All right. Oh, so for seniors, it's funny. Forbes magazine just listed Maryland as the worst place in America to retire.
Yep.
The worst, literally number 50, right? And there's a few different reasons for that we've got to address, and that we will address within within our administration. And I tell you, this is something that's personal to me. My mother right now lives in Anne Arundel County with my 94-year-old grandmother. And to listen to both my mother and my grandmother talk about the difficulties for what it is to be able to age in place in Maryland, this is real. And so there are certain things that we're going to have to be able to do, both in terms of the way we're looking at, taxation rates and, pensions and that type of thing, which all have to be placed in, because when people, and particularly people doing public service for the state of Maryland, whether it's firefighters, teachers, officers, et cetera, we don't want them on the first thing smoking to another state once they leave, because of the way that we look at our taxation rates. Because also these are people who are now going into prime spending years and they're spending it in other states. So not only doesn't it make sense, it's financially foolish for us to do it, but we also have to address the other things that make it a place that people want to retire in. And that includes things like, how are we looking at transportation? How are we looking at housing and the lack of affordable housing options that we continue to have? The fact that in the state of Maryland, the average person will spend 40% of their take-home money on rent. Like, you cannot sustain in that way. And it also then includes, how are we talking about better pathways and supports for families to be able to live, sustain, and grow? And that includes many things you talked about before, about how are we addressing the issue of violence, how are we addressing the issues of public safety. People, particularly as they move on and they want to be able to retire with a sense of comfort and support, all of those issues matter. Well, one final thing that we also have to address is this issue of prescription drugs. And my grandmother will consistently talk about, the cost of prescription drugs. And this is a place where the state can have a unique role when it comes to everything from bulk pricing to the fact that we actually have a prescription drug affordability panel and board that was created 2 years ago, but that we still have not gotten feedback, transparency from the state to actually look for what recommendations they have laid out. That's something that is going to be a priority within our administration.
Now, look,
You gotta touch on the big one, Jay. You gotta touch on the big one.
What now?
You want to touch on the big one? Because
I have a friend who she's in her 60, 65 years old. Yeah. And she asked me to ask you, why did you choose Baltimore?
I was born down in Montgomery County in Tacoma Park. But I like to say I'm not a Baltimorean by birth, but I'm a Baltimorean by choice. Exactly. And I moved a lot because of tragedy, where I was almost 4 years old when my father died in front of me. When he went to a hospital, and his face was unshaven and his clothes were disheveled, and there was assumptions about whether or not he had insurance. And when my mother got to the hospital, they asked her questions like, is your husband prone to exaggeration? And he was released from the hospital with the instructions to go home and get some rest, and if it got worse, to come back. And he died in front of me 5 hours later. And while I'm a third generation Marylander, my mother, who was an immigrant, was then immediately thrust into single motherhood. And she didn't get a job that paid her benefits after my dad died until I was 14 years old. But that job was with the Annie E. Casey Foundation in Baltimore. And it was when I was a teenager that I fell in love with Baltimore. And I finally felt a community that welcomed me, flaws and all. And I built a community here. And 25 years later, my wife and I are raising our 2 children here in Baltimore City. And so when I decided to devote my life to public service, so much of it was focused on what can I do to better support my community, which is Baltimore City. And so whether it was when I built a small business helping first generation students, helping them to make it to and through college, those students who we were working with, these first generation students, they were Baltimore students. When I ran one of the largest poverty fighting organizations in this country that had never made a single investment in the state of Maryland until I became the CEO, that even during my time as CEO, where we had targeted investments in the millions that was focused on supporting Baltimore and Baltimore City. And when the pandemic hit, where my wife and I, who loves you, Jay, and just that's and she's my heart.
Yeah.
We got together with Fagan Harris from Baltimore Core, which I was very proud to also co-found with him, and also Sarah and Ryan Heminger, who run Thread, and we created this platform called Food with a Focus, where we invested, including our personal money, over when collected over $500,000 for people who in Baltimore who were food insecure. So I choose Baltimore because Baltimore chose me. When I was looking around for, when I was, again, trauma forced me to move around when I was young. And when I was looking for a place that actually provided me love and support, those people, the place that I got it from was the place that I still call home to this day. And so I say with pride, I'm a Baltimorean, and nobody has the right to take that away from me.
And you know what? It ain't where you from, it's where you're at, as I'm quoting from some rapper I know. And
That's right.
you're not running from Baltimore. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I heard this whole allegation, I found it to be a distraction. They've taken an issue, in my opinion, that was very silly and tried to make it a serious issue as if it was some kind of flow. Look,
That's right.
I don't care if you're from Baltimore, Pasadena, Tacoma Park. I don't care. Because quite frankly, as long as you're from the great state of Maryland and you're running for governor of the great state of Maryland, that includes all 24 counties in this state, including Baltimore City. So
That's
all
right.
this stuff about whether you're here, there, who gives a crap? In fact, you know what I mean?
Thank you for not cussing, Jay Wendell. Mom was gonna get us.
Yeah, she was gonna get us real bad behind you, boy.
I just feel like if people support you, you're not gonna lose your support over that. If they don't support you, they just don't support you. So who cares anyway? But
That's
those
right.
in the middle, that is not an issue that we need to make a decision on. We need to talk about the issues that affect us in Maryland, and not where you're from in Maryland, but the issues that affect.
And I got to tell you, I mean, I've been so humbled by the way the community has just
because
rallied.
it's stupid. It's
Rallied.
stupid, man. It's
And-
this
and I think-
on us.
I knew you were going.
And I think they see it that it's a desperate attack, and it's a desperate attack because people see the way this campaign is resonating with voters all across the state of Maryland, the momentum we have, and County Executive Stuart Pittman, the County Executive of Anne Arundel County. I think he said it best when he said, I didn't endorse Wes Moore because of where he is from. I endorsed Wes Moore because where he's trying to take us.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think we need to end on that.
Hey, I had another question, and I was like, I don't need right now.
We're good. We're good.
Well, are you guys? Because he's hard to come out. This guy's like a rock star now.
Okay.
So.
Hey, look.
Wait. No. I'm gonna jump in. We're gonna do something on a little lighter side because I understand from my readings you have connection or ties or affiliations with Oprah Winfrey. So what was that like meeting her for the first time when she came down and brought your book out? Like what was going through your mind? Let's take it on.
Jeff, I got to tell you, it was so wild because the first time I ever met her was on her show. And you don't get a chance to, sometimes when you do the shows, you get a chance to meet the person in the green room or whatever like that. But she didn't do it that way. So literally I'm sitting there by myself in the green room, and actually with Dawn and my mom were there. And then so they're like, okay, 5 minutes out, you can come on out. And then you walk out to the couch when they're like, hey, you have to go on. You walk to the couch, and then there's Oprah Winfrey sitting right there. So that was the first time that I got a chance to meet her when like the lights were hot.
You hear the angelic chords?
Yeah. but I tell you what, I mean, literally from that first day, and from our first conversation, which we had, our first real conversation after the show was over. And then she came back in the green room when we spent time together, and she was talking about, almost like giving me advice and life advice right then. In her, I have found someone who has just become a cherished and a dear friend. And I thank God for her, and I'm thankful for her.
Yeah,
you can call Oprah.
You must be doing something right because CNN picked up this story, and I'm like, wait a minute, CNN picked up story about state politics. I was like, what's happening here? So I figure you must be doing something right. So we here with you, and we gonna do this thing.
We're here for the smoke too. We're here for all the smoke. Let me tell you once again, this Sunday, Jeff, Jason, and myself will be hosting Wes Moore in Bowie, Maryland. We have a flyer that's online. Click on the flyer. Click on the flyer, you'll get the address, donate some money because it's a fundraiser. A lot of times we ask you to bring a bottle. This time we ask you to bring your checkbook. You can bring a bottle if you want to, but bring your checkbook because look, I'm telling you, and we don't want that money that makes a lot of noise. We want that quiet money. Okay?
We want the money that folds.
Yeah, we want that kind of money, or that money that runs through some fiber optic lines. Okay, that's what we're looking for. But the bottom line is, in order to decide that you want to be governor, it costs money. It requires resources, and if we want to make change, we need to put our money where our mouth is. And I encourage everyone under the sound of my voice to support Wes Moore. You know he's got some good, judging by his enemies, to be honest with you. And I know he doesn't have enemies, that's a strong word. And I know he doesn't use words like that. I can use words like that because I'm not running for anything.
His
But
haters.
judging by those who are coming after him over this stupid, silly
That's
distraction.
the best that they could find. That's all you got.
Look at this man. You can't find anything else other than the fact that you're challenging whether or not he should be able to choose Baltimore. You know, I choose Baltimore when I'm in Baltimore. I'm from Prince George's County. I love Baltimore. I love Prince George's County. I love the DMV and the BMA, Baltimore metropolitan area. So
And
as
you
long
go
as I'm
to
from
PG
Maryland,
County.
that's all that matters. And you know what? When I'm out of the country, to make things simple, I'll say I'm from DC.
Yep.
Because
Rep
it's
your city.
much to explain to people who aren't from here. But the bottom line, I don't care about none of that. All I care about is whether or not Maryland is going to have the proper leadership in place to take us to a place where we've never been before, a place that's better, a place where we can raise our children, we can educate our children, we can take care of our seniors, we can take care of our sick and those that are shut in, and we can feed the hungry and keep the homeless sheltered. That's the Maryland that I want to live in. That's the Maryland I'm looking for. This man has vision. And if you're undecided, I encourage you to look at Wes Moore, look at what he has on the table, look at his plans, his agendas, and how he intends to move Maryland forward. And I tell you, your vote will not be wasted. In fact, it will be celebrated if you vote for this man and we get him in office. We have an opportunity, another opportunity. We squandered the last one. We have another opportunity to put real leadership in office. And this one just happened to be African-American. He just happened to be African-American. And to me, that is not the merit, that is merit. That's worthy, that is commendable because you know he got it honest.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh.
And I got, and if I could just say, give one just a huge thank you to all four of you for being our light, for being our guides, for being the people who I am so proud and excited to walk arm in arm with throughout this entire journey. And also I want to give a shout out to my running mate, Aruna Miller, who is a delegate from Montgomery County. And she's a seasoned and a deeply respected legislator, where she's served on the Ways and Means and the Appropriations Committee. She's a transportation engineer by training,
Wow.
and a civil engineer by training,
Wow.
and worked in Montgomery County for over 20 years, working on the transportation assets. But we are going to be the only ticket in this field that has actually led in the executive branch, the legislative branch, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and in the military. The only ticket in this field.
So you
And
got
so
some
we are so
experience.
excited about what we can get done together in
You
partnership.
want to learn more about Aruna because I forgot about her, and be honest with you.
Yeah,
We do need to see more of her.
yes,
I forgot that she's
Right.
part of the ticket.
yeah,
But yeah,
Take that bottle away.
shout out to Aruna Miller. We want to see more of you. But
Yes.
you got an excellent ambassador. We support him, so by default we support you too. And just so the record is correct, because I don't want anybody coming after me for any more silly SHIT.
Thank you, Jay Wendell.
Former delegate. She's not currently a delegate. So we need
correct.
to put that on the record because they every word that comes out of your mouth to them is critical. Yeah, he doesn't even know this. I don't want to hear it. Okay, I don't want to hear it.
That's
But
right.
there you have it.
But it-
Well, all right.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
God bless y'all. God bless you. God bless your leadership. God bless your heart. We're gonna do this together. We really will.
We're gonna get it done.
We'll get it done. We'll get it
We're
done.
gonna be right back at y'all next week with another great show of In Brotherly Love. Thank you so much, Wes, for giving us your time. You actually went overtime, so we really appreciate that. I know you didn't intend to. Miss Dawn, we love you. Thank you for allowing us to borrow your husband, but we really thought it was important to get his platform, his information out to the public. So if there is anybody on the fence, you'll understand why the Gordon brothers support Wes Moore. And you know where we come from. We got an educator, we got a businessman, and we got a lawyer. We come from a great place. We come from the HBCUs. We are solid in this thing, okay?
Amen.
And we support Westmoreland.
And we're lifelong Marylanders. And if we're lifelong Marylanders and we see the change that he can bring about, that means that it can be trusted for the betterment of Maryland, the state as a whole. We also thank Mrs. McCants for kicking it. I thought you were going to jump in there and ask a question about economics. I thought you was about to get him.
I thought about it, but you know what? He had the good answers, and you brought up retirement, which we're in a retirement crisis. So you addressed it. So I'm happy.
Yes, we are.
Hey, and that's from the financial
That's
wizard.
another glowing endorsement because Quiana, man, she's our bank lady. We call her
Tough.
She's
our
thorough.
bank lady.
Hey,
Yep.
another episode of In Brotherly Love. We thank you, Wes Morgan. We thank you, Quiana McCants. Hey, y'all see what it is, and we're at a critical juncture here in our state. And after 8 years of a governor who did not respect the educational efforts of Prince George's County and Baltimore City, those two places as a whole, which are very high density, high populated areas. It's just great to hear somebody who is choosing a high density area, who has chosen a high density area to support their growth, to represent them in the biggest office in our state. So again, Jason, that's the voice. Gordon, I'm gonna sign off first because I'm gonna let Jay Wendell let's let Jay Wendell go last because he's
You gotta go
impassioned.
last. You gotta go last.
Yeah, he's impassioned. So
I'm going to jump in and say thank you, Westmore, for coming out. Really appreciate you taking the time to come out. Looking forward to speaking with you more about your ideas and your vision as far as small businesses. I would love to give you some of the ideas that I have about the MBE program and see if there's possibilities that we can interject some things to bring some enforcement to that will help out small businesses as we go. But once again, I thank you. Thank you to your staff for putting everything in place. So this is In Brotherly Love, and we right back at you next week. Go ahead, Jay.
I already said it. Thanks, bro. And we look forward to your success in July. I believe it's still July 19th. They did not move it, correct?
Did not move it. And listen, it's our success. It's our success.
Yeah. Deanna, you gonna end us before we end with Wes?
It's been amazing. Honored to be on the show with you, Westmore. So I'm looking forward to monitoring the progress and the results and being an accountability partner too, because I'm very passionate about our community. I said, we're in a retirement crisis, and everything you said about hunger and all those things, I know it all too well. So I'm in the background holding you accountable to those words because we've been waiting for you.
Amen. Listen, I'm so excited to work with you.
She's going to be in Maryland too. She's got a daughter who's going to be in Maryland next week, and you're going to be in Maryland next week.
Next month, well, the last week of June. So I'm planning to do something with y'all. Last week of June, I want to get together.
All right.
And once again, y'all come on out this Sunday just to sit down, have a chicken wing, have some good conversation. We're gonna have a relaxed time, but we're gonna raise that money for you.
we're gonna have some brisket to those of y'all that were asking.
Oh,
the brisket
did he say
will be there.
Come on.
Yeah, we're gonna have some brisket. I'm gonna do a brisket. I'm gonna make it special.
Oh man, you got the brisket, Wes.
The brisket is popping off, baby.
That's the whole family waiting on him. So let Wes get his words in so we can shut this show down.
All right.
God bless y'all. See you Sunday. Thank you. Thank you, family.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.